Good evening. On behalf of Safe and Just Michigan's Board of Directors, it's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's annual membership meeting. My name is Anna Cohn. I am the president of the Safe and Just Michigan Board. Safe and Just Michigan acknowledges the important role that our members play, and we're proud to have you all as members here this evening. You'll hear all about what is left to address in 2024 and what's on the horizon for Safe and Just Michigan and our legislative agenda moving into 2025. You'll also be able to vote on new Safe and Just Michigan board members. Speaking of which, tonight's meeting happens to be exactly 1 week from Election Day. If you're here tonight, I'm sure I don't need to remind you to get out to the polls and vote, because I'm assuming you already have. But for those of you who haven't, it is critical to make your voice heard at the polls. And for those who have been released from incarceration but still have a record, you can vote. With so much at stake in Michigan, both on the national and the local stage, it is our responsibility to defend and protect democracy and our right to choose who speaks for us in DC, in Lansing, and in our own backyards. We have the power to do that with our votes. Elections will be close this year, and all politics is local. Make sure you've done your research, especially on local elections, including prosecutors and judges. Make sure you have a plan to vote. Remember, most polls are already open. Your vote impacts every area of our lives and communities. As you listen to our updates tonight, remember that so much of what Safe and Just Michigan stands for relies on our members and supporters to show up at the polls. To share more about Safe and Just Michigan's legislative agenda, I'm proud to welcome our Executive Director, John Cooper, to the floor.
Thanks, Anna. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Safe and Just Michigan's annual membership meeting. This meeting is required by nonprofit law and our bylaws, and we use it primarily to elect new board members, but also to update our members about the past year and what to expect the rest of this one and into the next. I'd like to start with just a few thanks. First, I'd like to begin by thanking our staff for all their hard work this past year. It's a challenging time to advocate for a less punitive criminal justice system, and I have appreciated the patience, positivity, and resolve that you all brought to work every day. The work we do is a marathon, not a sprint, and it helps a lot to run the race with such a great group of people. I'd also like to thank our board. Serving on a nonprofit board can be a mundane, thankless undertaking, and our board members are all busy people with their own careers. Yet they are generous with their time and dedicated to our organization, our staff, and our work, even though they aren't paid. So thank you all for your ongoing commitment and support. I'd also like to thank our partners in the work, who are too many to name. Most of our policy advocacy and all of our expungement fairs are collaborative efforts with partners who help make our work not just better, but possible. And we think it's important to acknowledge that. Finally, we want to thank our funders and supporters, including you. Our funders, donors, volunteers, and other supporters literally make our work possible, and we are incredibly grateful for your support. It is a privilege to do this work, and we are so thankful that you trust us with your support. So as I noted earlier, it is a challenging time for our issues. If you read our newsletter or were at our signature event a few weeks back, you've already heard me say a bit about why. It will not surprise you to hear that at bottom, the problem is politics. There was a moment 5 or 6 years back when there was genuine bipartisan interest in criminal justice reform. There were limits to how far that went, of course, but a Republican-controlled legislature not only introduced but passed presumptive parole, medically frail parole, clean slate, occupational licensing reform, and a 19-bill package based on the recommendations of the Joint Task Force on Jails and Pretrial Incarceration, just to name a few. And Democrats enthusiastically supported these reforms. That all feels like a long time ago now. 2020 saw the COVID-19 pandemic, the killing of George Floyd and related protests, the Back the Blue backlash to the protests and police reform efforts, like defund the police, a continuing media backlash against bail reform in New York, alarmist media coverage of pandemic-era crime trends, and a return to 1980s-style tough-on-crime politics. Michigan Democrats, for their part, have done well during this time, re-electing all their statewide candidates and taking control of the state legislature in the November 22 election. But criminal justice reform has not been a priority for Democrats since taking control. The stated reason for this has been fear they will be attacked politically for advancing so-called soft-on-crime policies. And it's certainly true that Republicans want to do that. But rather than presenting a strategic alternative to tough-on-crime agenda, Democratic leadership has refused to engage, shutting down essentially all criminal justice reform efforts, including preventing committee chairs from holding hearings and preventing bills from even being introduced. Predictably, of course, the soft-on-crime mailers and ads have come anyway, in what feels like record numbers. So one wonders what, if anything, Democrats got out of refusing to work on important issues that so many constituents and supporters care about. Fortunately, there is still time to get some things done, and we're hoping that some of this session's unfinished business will be taken up during the post-election lame duck period that starts after Thanksgiving. There are only 12 session days scheduled for lame duck, so legislation that has not already moved through some of the legislative process is unlikely to pass. But we have several priorities, such as the Sentencing Commission and the Vital Documents bills, that realistically could. So that's where we're focusing our efforts right now. We will keep you posted.
Thank you, John. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I will give you an update on our clean slate work, which has taken us all over the state of Michigan. Fortunately, we've had great partners across the state, and we've continued our outreach efforts by hosting over 25 expungement fairs in 2024. Our reach has expanded as far north as Marquette and as far south as Benton Harbor. We also partner with a number of organizations in the Metro Detroit area, and those relationships have been extremely beneficial. To date, we have served more than 3,200 people at these events, and we continue to develop those relationships with new and existing community partners with the hope of expanding our reach even further as we move into 2025. As some of you know, last year, the automated expungement system went into effect, specifically on April 11, 2023. So it's been a year since that system has gone live, and we've seen some significant strides in terms of automated record expungement. Michigan State Police reports that as many as 1.4 million convictions have been automatically set aside since the system went live. That includes at least 1.3 million misdemeanor convictions and roughly 128,000 felony convictions as well. It should be noted that those stats don't include the 92-day or less misdemeanor offenses that were exclusively expunged by the courts. So if you were to include those numbers as well, again, we think roughly over 3 million convictions have been automatically expunged when you include those convictions as well. Despite these successes, there is still room for improvement. With that in mind, we plan to continue to advocate for additional fixes within the existing law. Of note, we've recently advocated for the removal of the intervening conviction rule. Given the amount of convictions that have yet to be expunged as a result of this rule, we believe that its removal would pave the way for the expungement of thousands of convictions. The proposed bill was recently introduced. It just hasn't been voted on by the legislature, but again, it is our hope that this bill will be voted on relatively soon in the coming year. We have also identified other areas that within the law that we hope to address. Fortunately, we've gotten feedback from our partners and from other stakeholders about issues that have arisen within the law that need to be addressed, and we hope to address that moving forward into 2025. So with that, I will kick it to my colleague Cassie, and she'll give you an update on fines and fees.
Thank you so much, Kamal. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. This year, we embarked on a new multi-year campaign targeting exorbitant fees paid by incarcerated Michiganders and their family. These fees, which are a part of legal financial obligations, can bind formerly incarcerated Michiganders to the criminal legal system long after an individual's been punished and exits supervision. Some form of these legal financial obligations are a part of punishment, that is fines, or they seek to make whole victims of crime. Those are restitutions. And we did not focus on that. We turned our efforts towards the numerous fees and costs found in MDOC contracts with outside vendors who provide services to incarcerated Michiganders and their families. These include communication fees, financial transactions, healthcare copays, and commissary cost. This year, through the state's budget process, and with the help of our legislative allies and peer organizations, we fought for and won the inclusion of language in the budget that directs MDOC to negotiate for a reduction of fees and cost for goods and services provided to incarcerated Michiganders and their families. Our efforts were also bolstered by the July FCC Act that capped the cost of phone fees to 6 cents a minute and video visitation fees to 16 cents a minute. Despite these successes, there is so much left undone. And we are looking forward to working on more of these fees in 2025. Now, I will kick it to my colleague, Zach, to talk about bail reform.
Thank you, Cassie. I'm Zach Whaley. I'm one of our communications specialists here at Safe and Just Michigan, and I had the pleasure of being able to work on multiple campaigns this year, but one of our long-term focuses here has been the abolition of cash bail and the Michigan's as part of Michigan's pretrial detention process. Cash bail, like many other aspects of our criminal justice system, has been designed from the start to separate those with privilege from those with less. Ostensibly, it's supposed to act as motivation for people who've been charged but not convicted of a crime to appear to their assigned court dates. But in reality, it deprives legally innocent people from accessing the circles of support that are so essential when navigating the traumatizing process of a criminal trial. And the only thing that determines your access to that support is your wealth. For folks with access to enough money, they get to spend their months between being charged and their trial date at home, at work, with their families, paying their bills, meeting with lawyers and advocates, and otherwise leading a normal life while preparing for their day in court. For the roughly 88% of Americans with less than $10,000 in their savings account, the median bail amount for a felony, they're probably spending all that time in jail. We believe that pretrial incarceration should be based on a person's risk to their community and not the size of their bank account. And we've introduced bills that would make that practice a reality in our state. But the numbers and statistics only tell so much. For over a year now, we've been reaching out to Michiganders across the state to hear how cash bail has affected them personally. In 2023, we released a video telling the story of Sarah Jones Moody, a young Black woman from Southeast Michigan whose life was nearly uprooted when, to her shock and horror, a passenger in her car shot and killed a bystander. Today, we're going to be sharing a video, one of our newest films, one about one of our friends from West Michigan. His name's Michael Hoy. Michael was born and raised in Benton Harbor and has spent years of his life uplifting his community's rich past as the president of the local historical society, advocating for safety and accountability as the founder of the Benton Harbor Unsolved Murders Project, and providing access to arts and music for local youth as the president of the Legacy Group. He's also a licensed massage therapist. But as you're about to hear, his career took a turn after an argument at a local restaurant landed him in jail for 6 days.
You took away part of my life being incarcerated. Then you took away my financial means to catch up for that time you put me behind. You haven't been found guilty in a court of law yet. And then even at the end of that, you have fines and court costs, and that takes away from the money that you thought you were going to get back on your feet. So there's this cycle that just repeats itself. We're living paycheck to paycheck, a lot of people, okay? My name is Michael Albert Hoy. So I was born and raised in the city of Benton Harbor. I graduated from Benton Harbor High School. I want to say the class of 1984. I grew up on Elm Terrace. My passion is medical massage. My father was stricken with polio, like many people were. My father was in an iron lung from the age of 7 to the age of 9. And after that, my father had a full metal leg brace, a back brace, and 2 crutches. My father's feet would, they get what is called hammer toes. And his toes would curl up like this. In order for him to get out of bed in the morning, I would massage his feet and to slowly manipulate the muscles so he could actually slip his foot into his boots, into his brace, so he could get out of bed and go to work and provide for his family. I attended Northwestern College in the city of Chicago, and I was fortunate to do my internship at Cook County Hospital, and that's where I got my credentials and my passion for doing medical massage. I was driving past this church one day, and I saw this lovely lady carrying water out. So I started to talk to her, and I told her I'm the president of the Historical Society, what's going on, and she says, there's water coming into the property here. When I started to have conversations with them, what are you doing to preserve the building? What are you looking to do, to stop this, the water damage of this historical building? They actually relieved the building to our organization, the Legacy Group, and we are in the process of restoring it and bringing it back to the community. That was a blessing. I think the good Lord put us in the right path at the right time, and He made that available to us. And I'm regifting it back to the community. There's been so much that's been taken away from Benton Harbor. This is a possible resource for the community. So I went to this local restaurant. I saw my friend in the window. I was walking by. I just went and started talking with him. The bartender says, "Hey, are you Michael? Are you gonna? Do you need a table? Do you want a table? You're just kind of standing around." I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm just conversating with my friend here." She asked me to leave. I'm like, "Well, why do I have to leave? I'm just having a conversation." But she goes, "Well, you're not buying any food. You're not buying any drinks." And they said, "You need to leave. You need to leave now." They said they're going to go call the police. So I actually left. I was actually outside, and here comes the police officer. They come over and they talk to me, and they said, "Oh, Michael, these people asked you to leave." I said, "Yes, I've left. I'm outside. I'm walking out back to my car, and I got arrested. So here I am, handcuffed in the back of a police car on my way to jail." So when I was taken to jail here in Berrien County, it was on a Wednesday. This is like a whole new situation to me. And they said that you'll be heard by a judge through a video camera. The judge may or not hear your case by Friday, okay? And then nobody even knows that I'm here. My family didn't know that I was there. After I finally was heard, I had money, okay, in my wallet, but my wallet was taken into evidence. I was never able to get to my wallet. I was never able to post my own bond. Finally, my family posted it. There's 6 days in jail of my life that was taken away. My lawyer actually said, "Michael, it's best that you plead guilty here because, they're looking to go ahead and incarcerate you for this." I went ahead and I pleaded guilty. But, facing the possibility of being incarcerated, okay, and going to jail for 90 days. I mean, even more than just a career. I mean, what about your electric bill, your water bill, your rent? I mean, your car payments, all that stuff is tied to all that. And your life just comes to a crashing stop. It would have been even more, traumatic to me. So I took the less of two evils. And when I did actually get out and I talked to my employer, they relinquished me from my job. And then after that, so how do I go to another, either chiropractor or another doctor, or even a spa? It was a hard shift of my life, and I went for months without actually a job. I know people have gone through a lot worse, but to go through that for me, it was traumatic. There's a list of bondsmen that I saw there when I was incarcerated. There's close to 18 bondsmen. Okay, this is an industry. This is a factory. This is a cycle of people's lives that are making a living off of this on bonds. One, you've incarcerated somebody and you haven't been proven guilty. You placed them in jail for X amount of time. Then you took a big chunk of their money and their livelihood. Where's the justice in that? And you haven't been found guilty in a court of law yet. So now you took away part of my life being incarcerated. Then you took away my financial means to catch up for that time you put me behind, because we're living paycheck to paycheck, a lot of people, okay? And if you take someone out of that scenario and then you expect them to retrieve, how are you going to retrieve when you took several thousands of my dollars? And then even at the end of that, you have fines and court costs, and that takes away from the money that you thought you're going to get back on your feet. So there's this cycle that just repeats itself. It's totally all about the Benjamin. It's totally all about the monies. If you don't have the monies for representation, if you don't have the monies even for a bondsman, and let's say perhaps you are a homeless or someone that is just financially strapped. I mean, to be incarcerated for any length of time just because of money, that's just wrong. It's wrong to society, it's wrong to human beings, and it's wrong and an injustice that our court system has come to this point in our civilization that they hold people for ransom for money for a crime that they may not have committed.
Thank you for letting us share that with you. If you'd like to see more content like that, including other stories like Michael's, Sarah's, who, as I mentioned earlier, we have a whole series on former juvenile lifers sharing their stories. You can check out our YouTube channel that I'm going to drop in our chat. And at this point, I'm going to welcome our Director of Outreach and Community Partnerships, Ken Nixon, as well as Community Engagement Specialist, Ronnie Waters.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ronnie Waters, and I'm a community engagement specialist with Safe and Just Michigan. I would like to talk to you about some of the outreach events that we are doing at Safe and Just, and one of them that I'm very proud was is what my colleague Zach had just spoke on, the Life Beyond Life series that Safe and Just put together. It highlights the stories of formerly incarcerated juveniles, and we feel that it was important for them to tell their story, and we believe that these stories will help move the ball forward in our quest to end life without parole for all juveniles. We have done events in Grand Rapids and had nice crowds and media coverage, and also in Detroit, and we look forward to doing them in other venues too. These are powerful stories of redemption, of success, of people coming home and putting their lives together and showing that what's possible with the juvenile, what's possible with a person when they decide and they're determined to make a difference in the world. All of us have created a lot of havoc in this world, and now we're getting an opportunity to correct that wrong, and proud of my brothers and sisters in the juvenile community and the work they're doing. And I'm proud of Safe and Just Michigan for highlighting these stories, very powerful stories. We also do a lot of outreach with our partners. We believe in showing up for our partners, be it if we tabling or if we own a panel or in any way, because it's all about collaborative efforts to move the ball forward on the campaigns that Safe and Just is working on. We continue to go to coffee hours all over the state. We believe that when we show up in Safe and Just hat or shirt, The lawmakers started to take notice of us and know that we are in it for the long run. There's been a lot of disappointment with the way different bills have moved concerning criminal justice reform, but as our director, as our executive director has stated to us, this is a marathon and not a sprint. And even if it is disappointing and frustrating, we continue to build. We continue to try to be in their ear, in their face, knowing that we're not going anywhere. And we know that these type of efforts pay off. So continue to do that and look forward to continuing the work that we're doing, and happy that I had the opportunity to update you guys and just wish us luck, because we're in the streets every day with branding. We're changing the image, at least in Southeast Michigan, of Safe and Just Michigan. People know that who we are now, and they know what we stand for, and they respect us for that. I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Ken Nixon, to continue explaining to you some of the wonderful works that we're doing.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kenneth Nixon, the Director of Outreach and Community Partnerships, and kind of picking up where Ronnie left off. We have traveled across the state, making sure that we're bringing awareness to criminal justice reform bills, and not only in Michigan. Just recently, John and I we traveled to Chicago to partner with the MacArthur Center to speak as experts on parole and decarceration, and where we see criminal justice reform going in the next 3 to 5 years. It was a very informative conversation where we got to network with a lot of partners from across the country and learn and understand what's happening in different places. Some of the work that we've also done here, partnering with some of our corporate partners, people like the NBA Social Justice Committee, who we partner with to do a very large expungement fair at Little Caesars Arena earlier this year. Safe and Just Michigan has taken on the task of trying to bring awareness on all fronts to every campaign that we are working on. We have an incredible team. As you can see, we have started to move into the space of video awareness as well. Being able to see the change in real time is a lot different from hearing about it. So a lot of the things that we are working on, we're doing it in an impactful way. We're touching people in different ways. And Ronnie and I, with the outreach department, we're trying to be in as many places as we possibly can to ensure that people know not only who Safe and Just Michigan is, but the work that we are doing as well. And with that, I will pass it back to John.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Ronnie. So this is the last sort of section of our updates, looking ahead to next year. I talked a little bit about lame duck, but as I said, there's just not a lot of time to get stuff done. So we are actively planning for next year. And what we work on in 25 will depend a bit on the outcome of next week's election and what does pass in lame duck. But we expect to be working on many of the same priorities, from bail reform to ending juvenile life without parole to second look in the 25 to 26 session. In addition, we'll continue to prioritize our efforts to reduce fees in the Department of Corrections, in our court system, and in the driver's license restoration process. We'll also continue to work on sentencing reform, including creating a sentencing commission for Michigan, which is something we haven't had since the late 90s. And we're also looking to reform Michigan's habitual sentencing law, which is among the broadest and most punitive in the country. And finally, we will continue to advocate to remove barriers to opportunity for justice-impacted people. As Kamau mentioned, we have another round of bills that will expand the impact of the Clean Slate Law. We're looking to incorporate non-conviction records and also make hundreds of thousands of additional convictions eligible by eliminating the rule that a conviction during the waiting period blocks the original conviction from being sealed. We also have a package of bills that will remove conviction-based barriers to employment in the healthcare industry, opening up employment opportunities at hospitals and nursing homes statewide to hundreds of thousands of people, and also making many people with convictions eligible to provide services under Michigan's Medicaid program. So, while it's too early to tell what next session will look like politically, we will learn soon enough. Control of the State House will be decided in next week's general election, and leadership elections in the State House will happen in the days that follow the general. Committee assignments and committee chairmanships will be sorted out in the months to come. Usually that's something we find out next January. If Democrats hold control, likely there's going to be less turnover. There should be some stability among the committee chairs. And we would like to see that because we think Kara Hope has done a good job and is someone who's going to help to drive our collective agenda forward. If we're dealing with other people, we'll have to get to know them and work with them and talk about our priorities. But we have a lot, I think, of good issues that could also appeal to Republican leadership should that ultimately be the outcome of the election. So I think we're going to hope to get stuff done either way. Thanks. Next, we go to Anna with our board election.
Thanks, John. So at this time, we will be, the board of directors have nominated Carol Seaman as our newest board of directors director. She is seeking an election for a 3-year board term. Carol Seaman is the former Ingham County prosecutor. Former Ingham County prosecuting attorney. She was elected into that role in 2016 and in 2020. Prior to this leadership role, she was an assistant prosecuting attorney from 1983 to 1995. Carol was a training director with the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan for over 3 years. She also served on the board of directors for the association. Please turn to the poll tab on the right-hand side of your screen to place your yes or no vote for Carol's election to the Safe and Just Michigan Board. Thank you so much. It looks as though we have overwhelming support to accept Carol Seaman onto the Safe and Just Michigan Board of Directors. Congratulations to Carol. As we get towards the end of our update tonight, I wanted to thank you all for being here. After we cast our ballots and the polls close next week, the rest of the work begins. Safe and Just Michigan remains steadfast. We're doing the heavy lifting. We're holding the right feet to the right fires to accomplish our collective goals. Accomplishing these goals requires our stakeholders, all of you, as we grow our collective front. That's why we need your help. Your time, your voices, your vote, and yes, your financial support. Safe and Just Michigan is fortunate enough to have a well-respected voice in the press and in the Capitol when it comes to speaking out about injustice in our criminal legal system. Your donations help us turn our voices into policy. As the constant political texts and calls wind down, we ask that you continue supporting change by supporting Safe and Just Michigan. There are a lot of worthy causes out there, and I hope you consider us among them as you plan out your charitable contributions through the end of 2024. Every dollar helps us create our Life Beyond Life videos, host expungement events, and keeps our signature event free for all members. Thank you for your partnership in this important work. Thank you so very much to the amazing staff of Safe and Just Michigan and to my fellow colleagues on the board for soldiering on. I believe there is a link. We're dropping a link into the chat if you would be so generous as to visit that for more information. At this time, we're bringing John Cooper back to share the screen with me, and we're happy to answer any questions that may have come up this evening. If you have a question for anyone on this call this evening, please feel free to post it in the chat, and we will do our best to address it. It looks like we have one question right now.
Yeah, thanks. This is from Kristen Austin. She's asking about what fees we're actually looking at here. So the The initial categories we looked at were medical copays. There's a statutory $5 copay for to see a doctor for any non-emergency purpose in DOC. There's about 50,000 of those charged annually. We're going to have a bill early next year to eliminate that practice. DOC said they're not going to oppose it so long as we can get some revenue in their budget to offset the revenue. We also looked at the prisoner accounts. There's staggered fees for transferring money in. Those fees seem kind of unfair, just numerically, based on the amounts. When these contracts come up for renegotiation, we can work with the budget subcommittee chairs to put pressure on DOC to lower the fees in their renegotiations. And most of the major vendor contracts are going to be up for renegotiation this year. The challenge we run into with some of these contracts, like commissary, for example, is that there's just not very meaningful competition. Like there's not very meaningful alternatives, because with commissary, for example, you need to have someone who's capable of actually like getting the goods into all the different facilities consistently, and running the store. And there's just not very many vendors that are interested in doing that. So we've gotten some pushback with DOC over the commissary issues, but the reality is, there's inflation with the goods that are at commissary. They're very expensive to begin with. And there's a 19% contractual markup that goes partly to the vendor and partly to the prisoner benefit fund. That DOC has gotten rid of that for certain items like the, essentials, toiletries, that kind of stuff. And it's reduced it for other categories, but it's still a big markup on top of things that have already been marked up. And I think people are feeling a lot of pressure due to the costs. So that's an area we looked. We've also heard a lot about the vending machines. We're looking at that. The challenge is that those are not DOC contracts. I think it's facility by facility. So we're trying to run down information about that. And, Kristen, honestly, like if you've got information about those, let us know. And if there are other areas where you feel like there's exploitive fees being charged by the department, we're interested in hearing from you, because this is a new area of work for us, just doing the budget side of it and trying to influence how DOC does contracts. And we're still learning about what's out there and what we might be able to help with. So I hope that answers the question. Please let me know if not.
And then I see Jessica Henry said, are there any call to action items we can assist with besides voting?
Sure.
First thing I would say is definitely make sure that you're tuned into our social media and our partner social media for upcoming events. There is a Second Look Coalition Legislative Day coming up on November 12th at the Capitol in Lansing. We would love to have a strong showing for that. And keep attending events, keep supporting our partners. John, what would you add?
Yeah, I was going to say the Second Look. You guys are going to hear a lot about that event between now and the 12th. But that's because, it's very important to the coalition to get people out. That'll be the first opportunity after the election we have to try and set the legislature's priorities for the rest of the year. And so the hope is that we can get some momentum behind Second Look then, and perhaps, get it moving within the legislature or build the kind of momentum we need to get it passed. If not this year, then next year. Outside of that, I have heard just candidly from lawmakers that they don't understand how important these issues are to their constituents and supporters. And I think we just need to help them understand that these are, issues that affect families and communities more than any others in a lot of cases, and that working on them is a way to to show that you care about your constituents and you want to make a difference in people's lives. And I think the way the political leadership has handled this is that there's no real upside to working on these issues. And that's just not true. So we need to help them understand that like there really is value politically to working on these issues. And I think it's not just about improving individual lives, it's about improving public safety. It's about improving the health and prosperity of communities. And so they just need to hear from us more about these things, because I think they've been socialized to be afraid of these issues, and the way they've typically handled them is to duck rather than lean into them. And we're just going to keep being frustrated if that dynamic doesn't change.
Thanks, John. Before we close this evening, are there any additional questions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's membership meeting. Thank you so much. Anyone in the chat can say "so moved," and we will consider that.
I'll move to adjourn for you, Anna.
Thank you. I hope you all have a great night. Thank you, Jessica, for seconding. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and we will see you again, same time, same place next year. Thanks, everybody.